Izuku, the absolute madman. Man not giving any regards to his body. He doesn't care. The man rushing in, shattering his bones, breaking his body like nothing, just to beat Overhaul. The man has just lost it. Oh man, just Izuku going all in is just certainly hype. But before I get into that though, I want to talk about something that was revealed. I want to talk about the origin story of Quirks, or the possibility of Quirks, and also Overhaul's motivation, his ideals, what he wants. So this chapter is a very important chapter. There's a lot of action, but it's a very important chapter for two major things like I just said. So to start off, let's talk about the origin story of Quirks. This is something that many of us have been wanting to know for a very long time. All we really know before this chapter was that Quirks were some form of genetic mutation. And basically, humanity had a mutation happen in their DNA and all that, and eventually they developed Quirks. And it happened thanks to their toe, like a second joint or whatever, and then that's how people were able to know they got a Quirk. And in this case, Izuku is that rare case of someone that's like a pre-human, a pre-mutated human, someone that was born quirkless. He's a very rare study. And so, when you go back to the past, basically, Izuku would have been the common species, and the rare species would be the quirk users. But now it's completely flipped. Now, the origin story of this, apparently, is some form of disease, which explains Overhaul's design and his phrasing to why he thinks quirks are a disease. It makes a lot of sense now, and I really like the theme of that, but I'll save that for later. Basically, though, from what is stated, a theory is that apparently a long time ago, before everybody had quirks, there was this disease that was traveling around throughout mice. These mice spread disease, and then basically people got this genetic mutation and mutated people in a way, and then it caused it to where people are like they are today, thanks to this disease. Now, when we think of diseases, okay, diseases, in many people's mind, automatically, we think of very bad things. Cancer, for instance. That's the first thing usually that comes to mind when you think of diseases, is cancer. And so Overhaul views quirks like a disease, or in this case, like cancer. He feels like it's not necessarily a good thing, but in reality, it is a bad thing. Now, obviously, there's different perspectives here, because you have people that have quirks that actually save people, heroes, and then you have people with quirks that are bad people, villains. And it's understandable why he would say quirks are a disease, because there's many ways that these people could easily just kill each other, like it's nothing. I mean, you have someone walking down the street that's like Overhaul with his ability, he could probably just eradicate many people without them even knowing it while he's walking down a busy city street. That's how dangerous a quirk can be. And so in this case, his example of a disease, it does make sense. If it did spread through mice as well, this is very fascinating because it lets us know how quirks began in the first place. And I find it very interesting that of all creatures that could have transmitted this disease, it was a mouse. Now, let me kind of back up real quick and explain something. Let's think about the principle of UA. The principle is an animal. We know this. If you're a manga reader and if you also caught up with the anime, which you shouldn't be watching this video if you're an anime only, but if you caught up with the anime and you also read the manga, you know, the principle, he's an animal. He's a rare case in an animal developing a quirk. Now, this is something very interesting when you think about it. A rare case. So, animals can develop a quirk, apparently, but it's a very rare case. And judging by this information here, what we got in this chapter, we can assume the only animals that may be able to develop a quirk is probably animals that work very similar to how humans are, how we catch diseases. And there's a reason why scientists experiment on rats, lab rats and stuff. There's a reason why. Because usually rats, since they could transmit diseases and all that, sometimes, you know, if a rat can catch a disease, usually we could probably catch a disease as well from it. And so that's kind of why it explains why the principle could be a rat. Like, why he's a rat, he's an animal, is because maybe only certain creatures that could catch diseases from, you know, humans or mouse, or mice, or whatever, they are the ones that get infected and can have a quirk. That's a really cool, interesting origin story, and it would explain why the principle was experimented on. It would definitely explain why, because most likely the experiments that the principle received was most likely to figure out the origin of quirks and why, he, of all things, had a quirk besides all the others. Did it originate from his kind, or was it other animals that brought it? Most likely that explains why he was experimented on. It's because of his race, and most likely the possibility of him being the origin to quirks. So, yeah, we got a lot of good world building with this chapter of Boku no Hero Academia, and it's very surprising, and I'm willing to bet some of it's probably very accurate. The one thing I want to mention is the fact that, since this is a disease, this chapter makes me assume that maybe there was, like, a beginning, mother of quirks, so to say. If this really is something that is passed on to people, what if there was a quirk that started this all, some mutation that was able to give quirks to others? In this case, something very similar to All for One, or One for All. What if there was a quirk that was the start of all of this, and then eventually mutated people to be like they are? It's something to think about. It is. It's something to think about. Maybe there is one quirk that's above all the others and can give or take, very similar to All for One. Anyways, let's talk about the motivation, the ideals of Overhaul. So Overhaul is a character, obviously, that's been the main focus of this arc, and he has moved up into a lot of people's rankings in terms of villains for this series. And I'm going to be honest here. I really love Stain, but after seeing a lot of Overhaul, his motivations, to just how he is as a person, his quirk and everything, I dare say he's probably my favorite villain. I dare say he is, because that's just how much I've truly enjoyed his scenes. And I also like the fact that Izuku's having to use 100% One for All just to defeat the man. It lets us know in perspective how strong Overhaul is, how broken he is as a fighter in terms of being able to regen and all that, fix the stamina problems, all that, go in, merge with people, use multiple quirks. The man is insanely powerful. And so for Izuku to have to use 100%, One for All, that makes me very happy, because it shows that he's not a weakling. It's not going to be like a random power-up that makes no sense for Izuku to bring him down. Overhaul truly is a strong and terrifying individual, and not someone that you can make light of and think that he's very weak. That makes me find this situation very impressive. And so he's been a very fascinating character. He's become one of my favorite villains of the series. I just like how he is. And this chapter kind of gives us an insight to his personality and what drove him to be like he is, why he acts like he does, and why he wants Eri so badly. Now, this entire motivation is very, very relatable to the origin story of Quirks. And like I said, Overhaul thinks that quirks are a disease. And it's clear as day that he spent a lot of time researching quirks, the origin of quirks, and figuring out where everything came from. And I think the reason what led him to do this is probably because of his isolation, or his upbringing in general. We know at some point in his life, he obviously had to have something very bad happen to him for, the Mafia, the big boss, to pick him up and then, add him to his group. Something had to happen to his parents. And the only thing we can assume is when Overhaul finally had his quirk activate for the first time, there is a likely possibility Overhaul could have accidentally have killed his parents, or he could have done something so heinous that his parents just didn't want him anymore and they were terrified of him, one or the other. And we know something bad happened to him. And most likely what drove him to be like this is, why he has such self-loathing, why he has no empathy for others, is most likely because he was never shown love as a kid. Now, I know many would be like, oh, that's stupid, that's really stupid, but we need to look at something here, okay? One of the big things about Boku no Hero Academia that Horikoshi has done very well with is using trauma as a big thing, and characters don't overcome trauma. Let's look at Eri for a second, okay? Eri's a very good example of this little plot point when it comes to characters for Boku no Hero. Eri has a lot of trauma. She is someone that has been traumatized by Overhaul. She is someone that doesn't run away and she cries and just bundles her head, puts her head down when she's about to get hurt, basically, and she just lets it happen. She'd rather be hurt than others be hurt. That's basically how she is. And she doesn't like to be the cause of others getting hurt, and she's finally trying to take the initiative to help others, which we see her trying to use her ability to help out Izuku. And she's always viewed herself as a, a cursed child. She even got manipulated to go back to Overhaul when he was talking to her, which shows that she has this very deep trauma within her that just will not disappear like that from one conversation from the main male character or Togata that sacrificed it all. It's not that easy to get rid of trauma. So to not reinstate the same points I've said before, trauma is a big thing when it comes to Boku no Hero Academia, and it's something that Horikoshi has flirted with a lot. And when it comes to writing his characters, he likes to show that when someone experiences something really horrific in their past, it doesn't go away like that. And so when you look at this scene with Overhaul, he also most likely has experienced trauma. He is someone that has been warped by his upbringing to the point to where he has now led him to have these very messed up and weird ideals. So let's kind of go into the nitty-gritty details. Number one, besides whatever happened to him in his past, whatever his parents did to him, probably leaving him alone, probably thinking he's a monster, or probably just, abandoning him in general, whatever led to that, eventually he found the Mafia, and the Mafia took him in. Now, from what we can assume, is that Overhaul definitely developed a good bond with the Mafia, or at the very least, he developed a good relationship with the mob boss. He had a good relationship with him. It seemed like he really respected and admired him, and most likely it was the father that he never had. Someone that he truly cared about, someone that seemed like it truly cared about him. And so he finally found, like, a family. He finally found someone that loved him or cared about him. And so, obviously, like someone that's like a child and, wants to help someone out, obviously they want to repay their debts. They want to, say, hey, you've done so much for me, I want to do something for you. And so, when you look at it like that, Overhaul necessarily wasn't doing something bad. In his mind, he believed he was really wanting to do something for someone he cared about, and he was trying to do it for the good of him. That's what he wanted. So even though his actions and what he has already done in the series is heinous, he was trying to do it for good intents. Twisted, but good intents for the person that he admired. And basically, the Pops is like, look, what are you doing? You can't do that. You cannot do this. You cannot do what you want to do to the girl and all that. Like, do you have any respect for, human life? And from what you can assume here, is that since his upbringing was so bad, like I said, he probably doesn't have any empathy for others. He probably doesn't have a very good moral compass overall. It's been completely messed up thanks to his upbringing, and that's why he cares little for, human life or experimentations, most likely because he went through it as well, and that's why he could probably do these heinous things to Eri, because he just can't comprehend it. He can't comprehend the fact of what's wrong with, tormenting a little girl. He thinks just because he's trying to do something good for someone, it's completely fine, and that's basically his mentality. Now, if we go a step further as well, though, his ideals have worked. As we said, or as I said, and how the chapter said, basically he thinks quirks are a disease. And so he wants to completely remove and eradicate this world. Not destroy the planet, but he wants to destroy the very pillars, the foundations that hold up this society, which is quirks. He wants to remove quirks for everybody goes back to what they were when everything began. For instance, before this genetic mutation happened, before, this disease spread throughout the people, whatever it may be, he wants to remove all of this, cure everybody, for everything can be back to normal and nobody has a quirk. And in a way, when you look at this, it's a very interesting viewpoint. Because if quirks weren't there, obviously heroes wouldn't exist, but at the same time, villains wouldn't exist. Now, obviously, when I do think about it, there'll always be heroes, there'll always be villains, but not to this level. For instance, superpowers. You'll have it to where there'll be just normal cops, or like normal FBI agents, and then you'll have normal villains using guns, knives, whatever. And so, when you see this, he wants to reset the world to zero. He wants to reset everything to the point to where there is no power. So he wants to make it to where society isn't like it is, how dangerous it is right now. Everybody's holding like a loaded gun when they walk down the street. He wants to make sure everything is gone. Remove this disease, because it's a very dangerous disease. So what he's doing is a very interesting thing and fascinating, because it's not necessarily a bad thing if both sides lose their, powers. But then we get a little bit more insight to what he wants. Now, besides just eradicating this world, he wants to be able to bring the Mafia back up and allow the Mafia to flourish. The Mafia to be the big power once again. And we see insight to where he wants to use Eri as like the centerpiece to create quirk erasing bullets, completely eradicate quirks, but also give a serum to the heroes for they can bring these lost quirks back. Now, in essence, what this means is he wanted to have control on chaos and, peace. He wanted to have complete control on both sides. He wanted to be able to make it more chaotic, but then also form the peace as well. He wanted control of both sides. He wanted to grab both pillars and be able to shake them both, but then, put one back over the top of each other. He could easily do that. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to be able to control the world with this, which would have been definitely an easy way to control the world. You can control Quirks, you control the power scaling of whoever is possibly, causing terror to the environment or people, or you also cause it to where someone like All Might can come about and save innocents. So he wanted to control that, and the reason why he wanted to do this was to make it to where the Mafia was relevant again, because in this day and time, the Mafia aren't really that relevant. I mean, they may have Quirks, but they're not as relevant as they once were, because with the rise of Quirks, Mafia are like low-tier people anymore, because Mafia, they don't scare people anymore. They really don't, because just because they're like a mob organization, like a criminal organization, doesn't automatically mean they're as scary as something like the League of Villains. So that's basically what happened. The Mafia lost all credibility or any scariness that they once had. And he wants to revive that. And that's why he wanted to make them relevant again, is by selling the serum and also selling the quirk erasing bullets. But then this completely goes against his motive of what he wanted. He wanted to completely eradicate Quirks, the disease. So what I see going on here is that his motives, his ideals, they have merged. Very similar to how his body is merging with others, his ideals merge together, which they don't make much sense anymore. Basically, his goals, they don't make any sense. They don't. In his head, they probably make sense, but in reality, they don't. Because if he wants to erase Quirks in general, the big picture, then obviously he can't have the Mafia rising back up again either if he wants to sell a serum, but also, have quirk erasing bullets. Because if he wants to completely eradicate the disease, then he can't do something like that for the Mafia. So it seems like overall his objective merged together and it's warped. And he doesn't realize how messed up it is. So that's how I view it. That's how I view Overhaul in general, what he's trying to do. He doesn't realize how flawed his plans are, but he truly believes since he just has such a bad upbringing, his family most likely was awful, and he has no empathy, he's self-loathing, and all of that. Most likely that's what caused him to be like this. Anyways, let's get into the Izuku stuff. So Izuku, very strong. Like, extremely strong. Like, this man's power is insane, which makes perfect sense. I mean, him being broken right now, by all means, it's fine. And the reason for it and why it's fine, obviously, Eri reverting all the damage, completely rewinding the damage, and he's just breaking his body every second, like every millisecond, basically, just snapping his body into pieces, but Eri's bringing him back completely fine. So he's like on unlimited power right now. He's able to go all in, not caring at all, just go all in, and doesn't need to stop at all, and so it's understandable why he would be extremely OP right now. And like I said, it makes perfect sense, but also I really like the fact that 100%, one for all needs to be used against Overhaul just to bring him down. Now, I really like the moment in this chapter when Overhaul's, going in up against Izuku, and then Izuku just kicks him into the air. That was amazing. A truly epic looking scene. Just artwork in general, Horikoshi did a beautiful job on that, and I don't think I'm the only one to point this out, but the recent chapters of Boku no Hero Academia have looked absolutely beautiful. They look so good. Like, Horikoshi is going all in with the artwork. And, I mean, when you look at the certain backgrounds, the designs of characters, he's going all in, and it makes a lot of sense why the man probably needs to take breaks recently because of all the effort he has been putting into this series. He definitely is going all in and wants to make this look as epic as possible. I cannot wait to see this in the anime. Just imagine how godlike this is going to look when it finally is animated. Just imagine seeing Izuku go, 100% and all that in the anime. That's going to be epic. So, another thing I do want to mention before I end this video, though, basically I want to talk about the fact that we also have Horikoshi is taking a break. So, apparently no chapter next week. Now, it's not because he's sick. It's not. There was actually some information given at the end of the chapter where it says Horikoshi is taking a break next week to collect and gather data. Now, I've heard about this in the past, and I don't think I'm the only one to hear about this, but basically what this usually means is that a writer, they're taking a break from their series because they want to research certain things to where they want to take their series. It's kind of like this, okay? You know how many people speculate the reason why Togashi takes so many breaks besides just his back issues? Many people speculate, besides the memes of Dragon Quest, they speculate that maybe the reason why Togashi takes so many breaks is because he probably researches where he needs to take his series, what he needs to write, and how he needs to write it. And that's probably what's going on with Horikoshi, what he's doing. He's probably taking a break for he can try to figure out how he's going to take his series, where he wants to take this situation with Izuku, but also what's going on with Eri, to what Night Eye's prediction is for the future, just all of these little things. Most likely, he's taking a break to kind of line this all up and make it to where it makes perfect sense, which I completely respect. I cannot respect Horikoshi enough for taking a break when he needs to take a break and actually researching things to make it even better. I think we can all say right now, none of us honestly should agree with this, what I'm about to say. I think we can all agree that if a man needs to take a break to research more for his series to make it even better, we should not fault a man for it. If he truly is doing that, if he truly is not writing a chapter next week just to research where to take his story or to make something even better or even increase the art quality, by all means, none of us should fault the man at all. So that's about it. I want to end the video there. An extremely good chapter. Loved it overall. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like my video, please leave a like. And if you don't like my video, obviously, leave a dislike as well. I don't hate you for it if you dislike it because everybody has their own opinion. So I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.